Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Distance Dilemma podcast. My name is Shaun. I'm in Dublin, Ireland, and this is Imran. He is in Thun, Switzerland, and this is our long distance friendship podcast, episode number 48. And we are going to be kicking things off this week with our weekly section of Out of Context Weekly Scenarios. This is the part of the show where me and Imran give each other sections of our week out of context, and the other person has to try and guess what's going on. So, Imran, what is your Out of Context Weekly Scenario?
So my out of context weekly scenario for this week is how do I word it? I received an offer that I had to turn down.
Was this a job offer?
No,
A offer got to do with college?
no,
Something medical?
no, nothing to do with medical. No,
Plans with your friends?
no,
Football?
no,
Is this anything got to do like with a professional environment? Like, is there anything got to
no,
do with
nothing
your
to do
job
with like a
or
working or career or anything like that.
is there anything got to do with Nicola?
Yeah, she's involved as well in the offer.
Okay. Was it like did someone offer to like bring you on holiday or something?
No, I wish.
Yeah, so I was thinking, like,
Any takers? No problem,
I
mate.
was thinking like maybe like did someone invite you on a family holiday and you couldn't get the time off work or something like.
No, no, no.
So were
So
was
me
were
and
you,
Nicola received an offer that we had to turn down.
did you get
That's
invited
what.
to a wedding?
No,
Is it like did you get invited to some sort of event?
no. We didn't invite it to go somewhere. We just got an opportunity for something or to receive something and we rejected it.
Was this like a product?
No.
Was it a service?
Um, can you, what do you mean by what do you mean by a service? Like, just give me
Like
an example.
like was it like something like somebody was offering to do something in the apartment
No,
for you?
no, no, no,
Like okay? Was it like something a service like for you guys like a massage or a
no, no.
haircut
It's not.
or
It's not a service. No, not a
it's not a
service.
service? Okay. You received an offer that you had to turn down.
Yeah.
Was the reason you had to turn it down was because Nicola's not at home right now?
No, no. She was at home at the time. We were both.
Okay.
We were both back in. We were both in Switzerland at the time where the offer was coming.
Okay, so like, was this something that like was like short notice that like you were offered it but like it had to be like accepted and like done that day or the
No,
next day like or was
no.
it like this thing is gonna happen in a couple of weeks time?
Yeah, in like a couple of weeks to a month time. Yeah.
Okay, was the reason you had to turn it down got to do with you guys not being in Switzerland?
No.
So you guys are okay. I'm just trying to be like, right, why would you have to turn it down now and try and reverse
Okay,
some
so we were
situations here?
we got an offer from somebody uh to receive something and have for probably the rest of our lives until a certain time period, but we rejected it.
Was it a
That's all I'm
house?
gonna get. No. Again, I wish.
Yeah. Something you'd have for the rest of your life.
Until a certain
Uh,
time.
is is it big? Like this is an item of sorts, is it?
I wouldn't word it as an item.
So it's not an item and it's not a service.
No.
And you'd have it for. Is this something
See,
I
I
have?
can't give you yeah. I can't give you any clues though.
Is it a TV?
No.
What's something I have that you'd have for a car?
No.
Dog.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Here we
Well
go. You
done.
got offered a
Here
dog.
we go. Yes, yes, yes. So before I moved into this apartment, Sean knows I stayed with a girl called Melina. Shout out Melina, she listens to the podcast. And at the time, she was minding a family friend dog named Molly, and she was a crazy dog, really mental dog, really cute. And The family decided that they were going to move to Dubai, so they moved to Dubai with the dog and the family and everything. And we hadn't heard from the dog in a while. Obviously, me and Nicola moved out of the old apartment into this apartment, got our own apartment. And then last week we have a group chat with the previous roommate and another friend of ours. Last week we got like a text message in the group chat being like, "Look, the family moved to Dubai. The dog, they don't want to train the dog in the climb of the bike because like there's a lot of things you got to take into think. There's a lot of heat. The family aren't around the house much because they're both at work. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. They bought the dog initially for their son, but their son really had no kind of interest. He was like 4 or 5 at the time. So the opportunity came to us to be want to take the dog. And Nicola rang me originally when I was on the bus on the way to work, and she was like, "Imran, did you see that they offered us to take the dog?" And I was like, "Nicola, you're forgetting all the times where like there was. I'll give you an story. I'll give you an example. Right, there was one time where our roommate was away for the weekend, so we were minding the dog, me and Nicola, and the dog like would have like mini panic attacks, like purely just. I'm not even like purely just for attention because like you'd literally go off into the kitchen and you'd be making a bit of dinner, and then out of nowhere it would just start like doing like a fake like like panicking,
Panting.
and the panting, and like originally obviously we thought this was something serious, and then once we reached out to the family was like, "Oh, this is normal, the dog does this a lot," and we're like, Jesus Christ, it's like we don't even own this dog, we're having to deal with all
What
these
type of
panic
dog is
attacks.
it? Is it like a pug or
it
something?
you know what, man, I'm not great with it. It's like a white fluffy dog. I can't, I'm not great at the breeds of
Right.
dogs. I'm literally looking up right now for me a white fluffy dog. Yeah, I think it was a bit of a Maltese. I
Okay,
could be
right.
wrong. I could be wrong. Yeah, or Bichon, kind of in between both of them. Um, but yeah, so the opportunity came in, and I was like to Nicola, I was like, and it's funny because me and Shaun before we started the camera here, we are literally just talking about it, about I wasn't talking about this situation, but we are talking about like trying to get a dog or an animal here in Switzerland. There's a lot of things that you got to take into consideration
Mm.
before you take a dog as well, because if you want to travel and we don't have that many family here that can look after the dog, or different situations like that. So we rejected the well, a mutually respectful agreement me and Nicola came to was that we were going to reject the dog for the time being. But I did think about it. I did doubt my mind. I did come across my mind. Like I did, although Molly was a lot. She was I have to say, she actually was a really fun dog.
Mm.
So shout out to Molly. Yeah, she's living her best life in Dubai. Well, was living her best life in Dubai. I wonder where she'll end up. So, what is your out of context weekly scenario?
My out of context weekly scenario is a very adult complaint.
A very adult complaint.
Yeah. This is
Okay.
not fairly. I have to say up front, this isn't like super easy, but like we recorded 3 days ago, so I had to
Yeah.
pick something over the last 3 days, and it was the only thing I could think of where it would be like kind of interesting, but it's not. Like I apologize if like this is like obscurely like difficult to get to the end of, you know.
Okay.
But
Right.
yeah,
If I even
a very adult complaint. You might be able to like get like you'll probably get to the scenario, but my actual complaint itself might take you a minute or two.
Okay, were you so you were the first off, you were the person who complained. Who
Yeah,
made a complaint? Who made
I
a
was
complaint?
complaining about something. I didn't make a complaint to like something or an organization, but I had a complaint to myself.
Were you to yourself? So you didn't make a complaint to anyone, you just made it to yourself.
Yeah, it was kind of just me in my head being like, "Oh fuck's sake," you know.
Okay, so had this anything to do with food?
No.
No. Um at the weekend. At the weekend, so what did Shaun do? Did you doing food shop?
No.
No. Were you watching the football?
Yes.
Yes. Were you watching the Chelsea game?
Yes.
Right, so you're watching the Chelsea game, and was there something that happened in the game that you were kind of like
No.
annoyed about? No.
No.
So you're watching the Chelsea game, and there was a bit of an adult complaint that you made with yourself. See, I don't know why you've not. Didn't you win like 5-1? I can't. What does he
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
complain? I
No,
was like,
it's
what does
nothing.
he have to complain about?
It's nothing to do with like the result or the outcome or the match itself. It's nothing to do. Well, yeah, it's nothing to do with like the football kind of side of things. of it.
Okay.
Like, it's not about how Chelsea played or the results or like how the ball was kicked or a decision in the match or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that.
Was there like something to do with the channel that was something was on the screen when you were trying to watch the game?
It, you're getting warmer. It's not about the channel, but you're heading in
It's
the
something
right
to do with the
direction.
TV. Okay, it's something to do that was happening on the TV.
Sort of, yeah. Again, you're getting warmer.
Okay, so it's FA Cup, so it was probably on. I don't know if BBC and ITV still have the rights for the FA
No,
Cup
it's
games. Am I
TNT.
wrong? It's TNT. Okay.
Yeah.
So not
So
necessarily something to do with the
it's
channel.
not yeah. So it's not necessarily to do with the channel, but you're on the right track in terms of like the football and the telly.
Okay. Was it like really bad camera during the game, and then
No,
you were just
no.
pissed off? Okay. Jeez, gotta throw me a bone
This is
here.
why this is why I kind of started this off being like I kind of apologize. It's the only thing I could really think of, but which I think is like it's a valid. Well, and it's really not. It's really just me, having a little nuance. But it was the only thing I could really come up with. That like wasn't like I went to the shops at the weekend.
Yeah, yeah. I had a pretty mundane weekend as well, so I had to come up with that was my offer. Okay, something to do with the channel. Were you like really annoyed by someone on the TV?
No,
Okay, so it's not to do with someone in particular.
no, no.
Was it the way that the game was being shown?
Not really, but again, you're heading in the right direction. It's not about the channel itself. It's not about the game itself.
It's just
But
the
the
TV.
right. You're heading in the right direction.
Was the volume really low on the TV?
No,
So I'm heading in the right direction. Something to do with the TV, but not necessarily the game, not necessarily the channel. What could it be? Was there like was there like a camera shot of like someone eating food and you were like hungry and you were pissed off a bit or something like that?
no,
I don't know. I don't know why you would be, but I'm
no.
just trying to think. Can you show me a clue? Can you give me a
Um,
clue at all?
this complaint. It's this kind. I thought of this at halftime.
So it
While
wasn't. Ha
I was making a cup of tea when I had this thought. So I wasn't acting. My eyes actually weren't on the screen when this came up. It was actually a half time when I was making a cup of tea.
Was this to do with the commentary that was being on the TV at the
No,
time? No. Has it anything to do with the Chelsea manager?
no. Yeah.
I'm actually a bit blank. I'm really trying to think here. Like what could
It's
it be
the like
that's really pissing you off?
if there
Was
like
it taking too long? Was it you annoyed that there was only like a 15-minute break that you wanted to make food in between the game?
no, but you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer by you just said something there that you're. If I say it, it's gonna crack the code. But
Has it something to do with you going to do something
no,
while the game was on half time?
no,
It's something to do
no,
with half time, no?
no.
So I said I'm getting
You're
warmer.
getting you're so close to it. Like you're nearly there. You
Did
said
you want to did you want to watch the game? But I know because you have your TV in your office that you wanted to do something while you were watching the game, but
no,
you had to go into the other room to
no.
do something. Okay, I'm on. I would be here all day, and everyone on the
You're
podcast would be
so
like,
close. You nearly got. You would have gotten it if you just like focused in on this one thing you said about half about. So
half
the
time.
my complaint was my very adult complaint was the kickoff time.
Ah, I wouldn't have got that. I genuinely
This
that wouldn't
yeah,
have get to my
it's
head.
a tough one because you were heading in the right, and then when you said you were like, oh, something got to do with the amount of time, and I was like, just focus in on time, just focus in on
Well,
time, and you'll get
no,
it. Like
I wouldn't have got that. Was it at an awkward time? I didn't even know what time the game
it was
started.
at 8 o'clock, right? And my complaint. So this is a very me
That's
thing. This is me
yeah,
being this is me. This okay. So it was an 8 o'clock kickoff, right? So that meant the match was finishing at 10 p.m.
yeah.
It was half time, and I was just making a cup of tea, and I looked at my watch, and it was like 10 to 10, and I was like making my tea, and I was just thinking to myself, me at the ripe old age of 26, complaining that the Chelsea match is going on too late because it's keep me because I'm not in bed at 10 o'clock. And it was
Jesus.
literally just because I was sitting there like I'm normally in bed at this time because I'm normally in bed by 9:30. Like me and Simone usually like we'll watch our show, whatever we're watching from like 8, half 8 to 9, half 9, and then we go straight to bed, and then we're sleeping all by 10 or 11 or whatever.
It's
Um,
mad how different our sleep schedules are.
yeah. But yeah, I was just kind of like sitting there going like, like some because it's like quite. We're watching Euphoria at the moment, and
Hmm.
like it's obviously like about like teens going out and like having sex and being at parties and blah blah blah, and
Yeah,
like it was Saturday night and it was 10 o'clock, and I was like, oh, I've gotten. No, sorry, it was. No, sorry, it was
Sunday
about.
was it?
So it was 9 o'clock actually. So it was about 10 to 9 actually. Sorry, I corrected myself. It was about 10 to 9, and I wasn't going to get to go to bed till 10. And I was just like me at the ripe old age of 26 complaining I'm not going to get to go to bed at 10
Yeah,
until
yeah.
10 o'clock, you
We've
know?
hit unk status.
Yeah, for
Unk
sure. Like
status is in.
I was just like, what the hell, you know? And then I was like, yeah, that's such like an adult complaint to have. That I'm like, I want to go to bed at a reasonable hour, but I can't because of the football.
Man, I can't stand when the games are at 8 o'clock anymore because that means it's
Oh, the
nine
8 o'clock
o'clock.
kickoffs are
No, but
horrible.
it's 8 o'clock for you, but it's 9 o'clock for me. So
Yeah.
like I'm nearly staying up till midnight trying to watch a United game. And thankfully, most of the time we don't have the late kickoffs. And now obviously because we're out with both cups, we probably won't be having most late kickoffs unless it's at the weekend, which isn't too bad. Um, but yeah, it can be really frustrating, like trying to stay up and watch, especially after like you've worked like a whole shift and all you want to do is watch the match, and you're like, oh Jesus, I have to stay up now till like 12. But obviously for me, it probably doesn't make much of a difference because like most of the time I don't sleep till two o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock.
Mm.
When would you get up most mornings, like on average?
Monday to Friday, I'm usually up at like 7, 8.
Okay.
This morning I got up at quarter to 8.
What
So
about
like
like a weekend? Well, obviously you might
weekend
have a bit of a lie-in.
weekends really vary, man. Like we could be up at half 8 and we could be up at 12. Like it
Just
just
depends what your body
it,
needs. Like,
yeah, it really does. Like I find like if I've had like a really really busy like week, like if I've just like had rehearsals and done a lot in the gym, played football twice, and like I've just been flat out, I'll sleep in a little bit more, and sometimes I might knock it up to like 11, half 11, and then by the time I have my shower and stuff, I'm not actually downstairs till 12. But then
yeah,
like last week I had a fairly chill week in terms of like I played football twice. We're not back rehearsing yet. We're not going to be back in rehearsal till like the end of the month for music, like so like I had a pretty chill week, and I also finished work for the week on Wednesday, so like I had Thursday, Friday during the day mostly free, so I wasn't like kind of like I had busy days in terms of like doing the podcast with you, and I'd like got other things to do and like making content and stuff, but I wasn't like as run off my feet as I am other weeks, like so like this Saturday I woke up at like half 8, and we were both like up at 9, half 9, like having tea, and like that's like me also like having like I wake up and I have to have a shower, like I can't like not
you're starting
have
your
a shower.
routine. Yeah,
Like the only reason I won't have a shower when I wake up is if I'm going to the gym, and then like I go to the gym, have a shower when I finish, obviously, like
yeah, yeah.
um
Are you like a get up like straight away when your alarm goes? Are you like pressing the alarm like 15 times, or are you like and then roll out of bed kind of person,
it
or do you like
depends.
boom start
Winter
the day?
time, I can't get out of bed. Like I struggle to get out of bed in the winter. Like especially like the last kind of like week or two, it's been so cold here that like you wake up and like I'm fully awake. I'm in bed. Like my eyes are fully awake. Like I'm not like drifting back off to sleep. Like I'm fully awake. I just don't want to get out of bed because it's freezing cold. But then
Mm,
in the summertime, I'm the absolute opposite. In the summertime, I'm up and I'm like out of bed
ready
straight
to
away.
start
Like
the day.
it's because like yeah, it's very kind of temperature dependent with me. But I would say for the most part, I do kind of just get up. But it's very dependent on like the weather and stuff. Like and like sometimes you're in bed and like Zine is cuddled into you,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't want to actually disturb her, so I give her 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Like just kind of, like I woke up this morning and she was literally like she was like aligned with my body, and the dog's head was just on my shoulder, and I was like I can't like I need to give her at least 5 10 minutes, and I just kind of like scratched her head for a few minutes.
She found the cuddle position.
Yeah, Sean, it was cute as fuck.
Well, I'm sure it was. I normally are like I kind of wake up at like 9 most days, but I literally don't get out of bed till like 9:45. Or like most of the time on Mondays, I always work the evening shifts and work. So like I normally do the clips in the mornings for the podcast that we done the week before. So I'll get up at 9 and then I'll go press my alarm like 15 times, even though it's like literally 9:01, 9:02, 9:03, 9:04, 9:05. And then by like 10 past, quarter past 9. I'm kind of doing the clips and then I'll like hop out of bed. But most days for me, I go to bed around 2:33 and then I get up at like 9:30, 9:45. That's kind of like every day. Originally what I was doing is was I was getting up at 8 And I noticed that after like an hour, my body was just like completely shut down. So I found out for myself that I need at least a solid 6 hours sleep. I feel like if I have 6 hours, I'm ready to go. Now on the weekends, I do probably stay until about 10, 11, depending on Nicola as well, because she does be knackered. She does be up at like 5 every day, but it's mad different because Nicola like jumps out of bed even at the weekends. Like she'll literally hop out of bed and just start her day. Like it's mad. Like start, when you're a kid and like you'd sleep in at the weekend, your ma comes in, opens the blind, tells you to get up. Starts hoovering. That's Nicola. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there you go. Hope everyone starts their mornings productively.
Yeah, for sure. Get enough sleep. That's something like I stress to people. I'm trying to like get better at like not sitting on my phone at night now as
It's
well. Like,
hard.
yeah, like me and Simone will like typically go to bed and like we'll either it really depends because like if we go to like we would often go to bed at 9 o'clock. Like so if we go to bed at 9, we'll usually like stick on some background telly like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or The Chase or like we love watching like vet programs or like at the Animal Channel and stuff. Like now we'll just like watch stuff about like animals in the world or like a vet dealing with cats and dogs and stuff. And then like once we hit 10, we'll usually just like kind of cuddle and watch TikToks for like 10-15 minutes and then like go to sleep then. But like I like and I was really bad. Like I went through a bad phase where like Simone would turn over and we like she'd go to sleep, and like I would stay on my phone for like an hour, you know.
Mm.
But I've been trying to snap out of that. I'm trying to be like unless like there's a notification on my phone that I have to deal with. Like if someone's texting me, ask me for something, and it kind of I need to respond ASAP, then I'll pick up my phone. But I'm trying to like if there's nobody looking for me, if there's like a message that isn't urgent, like just leave it for tomorrow. Like I don't have to respond to every message right away when it's like not like when it's not something that's like really urgent, like when you're just like kind of like shy talking with someone like like over text or voice notes or whatever. Like I'm trying to like just be like no, I need to prioritize like my sleep more.
I would recommend like what we do is like obviously you in this situation probably wouldn't do this, but we actually don't. You know this already. We don't have a TV in our bedroom, so what we kind of do is we stay up to the point like during the week. Obviously, Nicola goes to bed a bit earlier, but like say it's a weekend and we're both tired and we both want to get like an 8 hour sleep. We like as soon as we are finished watching, we go into the bedroom at like whatever time, say like 11, 12, 1. And then say if we want to get an 8 hour sleep, because there's no TV in the room, like we have no background noise, no distraction kind of thing. Obviously we have our phones next to our beds, which can be a bit difficult. But most of the time when you're in bed with your partner, you don't really be on. Like you'd be on your phone, but like you're probably just setting your alarm for the next day and stuff like that. So I would probably recommend people if they do struggle with sleeping, try not have a TV in your room. I know it's kind of difficult because like not everyone has like the same space, like and the comfortability as we do, where we moved out with our partners and you have more than one or two rooms. There's probably a lot of people listening to this that are still living at home with their family and they're probably stuck in their bedrooms. It's gas how much time you spent. Like I don't know about you, but I spent like most of my time when I lived like with other people like in my bedroom. I never really spent much time in the sitting room, and it's actually now like and it's more the opposite. Like I barely ever. The only time I ever spend time in the bedroom is if I'm going to bed.
Yeah, that's that. I actually said that's from like a little while after we moved in because like when I moved into my nana's house, I was like in the box room,
Mm.
and I would spend a lot of time there not because I particularly wanted to, but more just because like my grandmother like had her routine. Like she was minding kids and she was like she had like her week. Like I could tell you what my nana's doing right now.
Right.
Like her week and her routine like runs like clockwork. Like
Yeah.
um, and I didn't want to like disturb that. And they had their times for like watching the soaps and watching like like they were still big into like Britain's Got Talent and other kind of like like and like Dancing on Ice and all those
Yeah.
types
Yeah. The
stripper and
granny's
all
top
those kind of
five.
things. Yeah, didn't want to like phrase like that, but yeah, like so you know. I didn't want to like come down like I would want to watch the football and I'd want to watch like Parks and Rec and like Breaking Bad and like I'd want to watch my shows like I couldn't really like it's not that I couldn't do it down there but like I
You
didn't
just
want
want to
to interrupt
disturb their
their
space. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
like at the end of the day like I was living in their house like I wasn't their child like I had moved into their box room like and they were kind enough to let me in. I didn't want to like disturb their lives too much like I wanted to kind
Mm.
of fade into the background where I could like obviously like it works in some situations, it doesn't in some situations. So I would spend a lot of time in my room and like it was a small room, whereas now because like I have my office here and I have, with the sitting room, with the kitchen and stuff, and like all my stuff is kind of spread out. I make it a point not to go in the bedroom
Mm,
unless I'm going to sleep.
yeah.
I
I,
just feel like I want that room to be associated with sleep and in my head and nothing else. Like if I'm going there, I'm going to sleep, or like get changed or put my clothes away. Like but I don't like spending long periods of time in that room unless I'm going to sleep or have a nap.
Yeah, I think that's like what most people should probably do when they move out because it is like a thing as well. A lot of people, they get home from work, they'll shower, they'll get straight in the bed, and then they'll just stay in the bed and then just watch TV. Well, I mean,
Mm.
like you're pretty much doing the same thing in the sitting room, but I don't know. It just feels like, when you're falling asleep on the couch in the sitting room, you're like you have that
Mm.
kind of thing in your mindset. Oh, I have to get up now and go into the other room to get ready for bed for the next day. I know it's like a really like mundane conversation to have, but it is that sense though. Sometimes I feel like when I am on the couch, it's like, oh, I'm falling asleep here. I better get up and go
Mm.
into the other room before I go to bed. So yeah, I know we're cautious of time here, so we'll move over beyond to the topic of the week. I'll let Sean bring it in.
Yeah. So in like kind of 2 weeks in a row of the out of context scenarios, people have been talking about like dry January or they giving up alcohol in some way. Somebody was talking about like knocking on the head, but they were afraid because of their friend group, and it came up the week before in a similar kind of like they've been thinking about giving up alcohol for personal reasons and stuff. So we kind of thought we'd talk about it a little bit more because I've been sober for 7 years now, and we just thought it would make an interesting topic. It's probably something people are considering doing this time of year. We've talked about New Year's resolutions. Quite a common one is to do with dry January, a veganuary of sorts as well. And while I cannot commit to that, I'm very much still on the carnivore mindset. I can talk at length about sobriety and giving up drink and the pros and cons of doing that sort of thing. And so also Imran brought up a few weeks ago that he's considering doing it as well in some form. So yeah, we just thought we'd
Mm.
give it a bash. Thought it'd be an interesting. I think it's the right time of year to talk about something like this as well.
Yeah, people are eager to start the year off correctly. I
Yeah.
think most of us do. Most of us do when we go into the new year, and it normally lasts 2 to 3 weeks. But I think alcohol is such a big topic, and I think, especially both of us being from Ireland, the stereotypical thing in Ireland is for people to push on this thing about that we're all alcoholics and we're massive drinkers, which in some sort of light is probably a bit true. We have been known to be able to drink a lot and kind of comes somewhat with the culture and the idea of storytelling in pubs. Like if you go back, hundreds of years ago, that's kind of where it all kind of started with our folklore and how everything came into play. But I think on like a basic level, I do think, alcohol has been a major issue in Ireland over the past 20 to 30, probably even longer. And it's something that I think our generation, I think, is a bit reducing over time. I think a lot of people now are more fit and try to stay away from most of these things, but I do think it's still a big issue that I've seen a lot growing up. And I mean, you yourself there saying like you've been sober now 7 years, so like what did you think, growing up initially? What was your thought process about like Ireland and alcohol first, and then we'll kind of go into the topic about alcohol and things with that later.
Yeah, I mean, like it kind of just like I remember growing up, and it was just like a thing you're kind of expected to do, like any like family functions or like any time people were over, like 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 I, for example, like I had like my grandmother's sister, if she would come over, like she lived like on the opposite side of Dublin, so it would be a thing like every like 1 or 2 months, like we'd alternate and go to um like each other's houses, like and it was just always like surrounded by copious amounts of drink. Like it was like everyone's getting through at least 10 cans,
Yeah.
like it's high volume drinking. And it was kind of just the expected thing. Like it was like you're gonna have a meal and then you're gonna get pissed. Like now I'm like between the ages of like 8 to 14 here. Like so obviously
Yeah.
I'm not drinking. Like and I'm not being tempted into drinking in any way. Like but it was just like it's a thing that I was kind of very aware of. And then like once I started to be like like get into bigger friend groups, once like we started hanging around, and like you start going out like on like the likes of pre-debs and like nights out with like your teenage group of friends and stuff like that, alcohol starts to get introduced to your circles. And I never really took to it at an early age. I didn't really drink until I was like 17, 18 anyway. Like it just never really like I just seen a lot like I wouldn't even say I've seen like anything traumatic in those years of like like my family consuming that much alcohol, but I just remembered like I just didn't enjoy watching them just sit there and become drunk. Like I didn't understand why they were doing it. You know.
Mm,
And I still like, and that's still something that kind of plays in my mind now. Of like, I don't understand why people like actively go out to get themselves shit faced,
mm.
just to be shit faced. Like with like the end goal being, I just want to like kind of black out. Like I don't understand that mindset of like wanting to do that every weekend. Like I think that stems from that of like I don't get why is are doing this. Like from when I was a kid. So that's kind of like what I had with alcohol growing up. And like I said, like I didn't actually really start until I was like 17, 18 anyway. Like and even at that, I was never, when I did drink, I was never the heaviest drinker. Like
Mm.
you would have hung around me and we would have drank loads of times before I gave it up. Like I was never like the person who was like falling around getting themselves in awful states. Like did I once or twice? Yeah. Did I black out once or twice? Yeah. Like but it wasn't like a consistent thing of like, oh god, Sean's a liability on a night out. Like
I think substance pressures and substance abuses that fairly stems down from like the family initially, like you were saying there, like you'd seen a lot at like family gatherings and stuff. I kind of wasn't really related too much to more around family gatherings as much where I seen like substance abuse, but I would probably see like alcohol definitely kind of started for me. Like I remember my first time drinking was when I was 16 at my 16th birthday, and I like asked a friend to like buy me like two or three cans, and I was like. I remember just acting like I still have a memory of it now, like acting like such an idiot the first time because obviously like you're trying to act when you're 16 and you're most people are kind of introduced in Ireland at that age 16, 17 and 18. Not that I don't condone underage drinking, but I'm saying like that's kind of the norm for most people in Ireland when they start to get more introduced to drink from the 16 to 18 line. And I kind of like I've been in, I still have a friend group that I grew up with from a young age, and most of us are all active drinkers. A lot of us spend time in the pubs and stuff like that. And I think we used to go to a lot of house parties growing up and stuff. But I also played sports for a long time. I played GA for nearly over 12 years. So I actually really didn't start heavy drinking, I'd say, till I was about 18, 19. But I have to say that I was definitely a person, and I think me and Shaun have kind of spoken about this before, kind of off camera. Like I was definitely a person that would definitely get really, really shit faced when I'd go out. I went through a lot of time periods where like I'd black out, and that probably was a stems down from a lot of problems I had like in my personal life that were kind of affecting it. And I think I only as I got older, I kind of came aware of that, and I realized that that's where I would play like devil's advocate to what you were saying, why you don't understand why people get blacked out drunk. But I think when I used to go out, I didn't have like the mindset that I was going to get blacked out drunk. I think I was just trying to use it as an escape, and I think that's what alcohol and like drugs is for a lot of people, that they fall into the trap that they use alcohol and drugs as like a substance abuse to get away from the personal trauma or personal issues that they have in their life. And I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people at like 18, 19, 20, 21, they like drink heavily because they're trying to deal with the social pressures and the family pressures and the personal life issues that they have in their life. But yeah, I think one thing I would say is that over the years, I think it's definitely decreased in terms of my mindset when I go out. I'm a bit more conscious when I drink. I think that comes with age, and I think that comes with like the friend group you're within and the people you're hanging around with and stuff like that. I don't know what like you kind of think people are like, you because you stopped drink. You stopped drinking at 19 or 20. I can't remember.
yeah, it was
Can you go ahead and
19 when
talk
I
about
stopped.
that?
Yeah.
19. So like, what was your mindset then from 19, and then like you're 26 now? So like, can you talk me through then like the years of sobriety and like what you had seen? Does it come harder? Is it easier? Like, what's kind of the aspect of like thinking about other people, yourself, and your
Yeah.
family, and kind of bring all that into it?
Yeah, look, I know this like is probably something that's like probably on people's minds, so I'll say it just for the sake of transparency and like just because it's probably the obvious question. Like everyone, anybody listens probably like, why did you give it up? Like and I just remember it wasn't like some big decision that I had thought on for weeks, and I specifically remember we were at a friend's parents' funeral. You probably know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to say on just in case they're not comfortable with me disclosing that sort of stuff in the podcast. But
Yeah.
we were basically at a friend's dad's funeral, and I was looking around, and it was like 3 o'clock, and we were all shit faced. Like, and it was a really sad funeral. Like, and we, we all knew, his dad really well, and it was upsetting. Like, to see one of our best mates go through that, and it was upsetting because the guy who died, his dad who died, was a lovely, lovely man. And like it was just, I could just see, drinks were getting passed around, and like everyone was getting more and more shit faced, and like by the time it was 3 o'clock, like everyone was buckled. Like I just remember
Yeah.
everyone was so pissed by like 3 o'clock, and I remember going up to the bar, and like I had ordered a pint of the water thieves, and like I had turned around and seen something, um, just like with people, just people being messy, drunk, and sloppy, and I think it just wasn't a pretty scene. Like nothing, like again, it wasn't like acting like super traumatic. Like it was just like messy drunkenness, and I was kind of like, what are we doing? Like I was like, I was kind of just thinking like, this isn't the time to be getting shit faced. Like this is the time to cop on a little and be there for your friend. And I'm not judging him or anybody for drinking or for like coping with that with drink. I'm not like judging that aspect, but I was kind of like, I don't think this is the way to deal with this. And also in the weeks like building up to that, I had seen myself not I would never have considered myself an alcoholic, but in the weeks leading up to that, I had seen myself getting into worse and worse habits when it came to drink. I had started to see myself become upset and start to drink. And I was like, I talked about, like, I never really was one to like get shit faced and black out and that sort of thing, but like I had done it once or twice, and they were all kind of recent to those weeks. And I kind of just said to myself, I'd ordered a pint of cider, and the cider got dropped in front of me, and I paid for it. And I said, I'm gonna have this point, and I'm just gonna not. I'm just not gonna drink for a couple of weeks. I just maybe I think this is October 2019. Like, so I said, I was like, I think I'm just gonna not drink for the rest of the year, and like just those few weeks were like so eye opening for me.
Mm.
And I just, like, my mood got better. I was saving money. I was like, just like, I was just a lot happier not doing it, and I just kind of was like, yeah, I don't think it's for me. And it's never been. I've never really been tempted to go back to drinking, like, because people ask me all the time, like, oh, will you ever drink again? And I'm like, I don't think I will ever full time, like, once a week go and drink 4 or 5 points, like, like every once in a while, Simone, like when we're on holidays, will like, because Simone drinks and you drink and most of my friends drink, like, so sometimes someone will like order a drink and go, oh, have a taste of that, and I'll taste something, yeah, of course, yeah, and like I've had taste of Simone's cocktails, and like they're delicious and they're lovely. Go, oh yeah, but I wouldn't order one for myself, I
Mm.
just taste it and go, oh yeah, that tastes nice, and then move on, like, I don't ever really see myself going past that point, really, just because I don't see, for me, I just don't see any benefit. I only see cons, not and no pros for myself, like, and now everyone's a bit different, and like, again, I just want to, like, say before this, I said it before when we were talking about this, I don't care if you drink. Like, I'm not sitting here saying drinking's terrible and you should never drink, and anybody who drinks is committing sin and all this sort of carry on. I'm not saying that in the slightest. You do whatever you want. It's your life, it's your body, your choice. You do what you want. I'm just telling my experience, and I would recommend everybody does give it a go
Mm.
for like a couple of months or a year or whatever, like that. I do think it will literally like change your life. Like, it will fully like just put your life into a 360 for all the right reasons.
One thing I'd say, fair play to you for opening up about that and talking about, but one thing I wanted to say, ask you a bit more about is kind of like, and I kind of mentioned that last week. So you said so it's been 7 years, sorry, is it 7 or 9? I keep forgetting if you want to say.
Yeah,
9?
seven.
7, sorry. So it's been 7 years since you've been sober. What about, have you ever dealt with like talking about stuff like social pressures? And I would say another thing is, have you ever had like temptations? Because temptations comes a lot with people that are trying to be sober as well. So I would say two things I want to say was like temptations, have you dealt with? Have you dealt with issues of like social pressures with drinking? And then another thing of saying, one thing I said that kind of I'm agreeing with you is like the big change that I noticed with a lot of people, like, and you were saying for people to even try just doing like a month without drinking, is the money you save. Because like you were saying before, and we kind of said a bit last week, we talked about sometimes you go out and you're having drinks, and then you have to get a taxi home, and then you get some food after because you're trying to sober up, and a lot of these things come into play. So can you talk a bit about more like social pressures, your own experiences with temptations, and then kind of like what your expectations with money was when you originally became sober? Like, did you come into the mindset being like, I'm going to save loads of money, or was it a thing like, or I'm going to be sober, or was it a thing over time it just gradually got easier and better and that kind of sense?
Yeah, just on the temptation, I was never like fully like I kind of alluded to it there earlier. Like I was never like somebody who relied on alcohol that much, and I could see myself starting to. So that's when I decided to stop when I did. But like the first kind of like two or three nights out were they. I wouldn't say they were strange or they were bad. They were just different because like you're used to going out to nightclubs, having a couple of drinks, feeling a bit loose, getting a bit groovy, doing those sort of things. But like once you do it two or three times, like it's not it honestly it gets better. And I remember one of the first times that I went out after I gave up was your birthday. I think that was either the first or the second like night out where like we'd gone out to a nightclub and everyone was drinking and I was the only person that wasn't drinking. And I wouldn't say I was like super tempted. I would say it was more just like, oh, this is different. And it's not bad different, it's not good different, it's just different. Like it might be a little unsettling the first time you go through it, but like that's more like just for the first like half an hour, 45 minutes that you're in the club where you're one of very few sober people in the room, like because most people in clubs and like in your friend group and stuff are gonna have like at least a couple of drinks on them, or maybe have had two or three pre-drinks or whatever before going into the club, like so I was never like massively tempted, but the one thing you did tap on there was the social pressure, and that's something that like still comes up to this day. And I the reason I kind of said it there is, and like, the way I was like, oh, people are gonna want to know why. It's still something that like whenever I meet new people, it's a big why, why, like and it's like they will keep asking questions, and it's really like I. I don't know. It's kind of like I do get like not annoyed, but like it is kind of like a bit. It's a bit frustrating that like I'm still, and I get like, come here, people have never met me before, and like they might just trying to get to know me and stuff like that. Like so they're probably not like mean to be like super rude, but like sometimes it'll like go past the point of like, oh, I don't drink, and they'll just ask a few too many invasive questions, just because they don't get it, and yeah, like it still comes up and they're like, oh, but you'll have one at Christmas, or you'll have one at your birthday, or you'll have. I'm like, no, I don't have one. And like I said, they're like, I'll have a taste of a cocktail, or I'll have a taste of something if Simone's like, oh, try that, it's nice. Or like if you or Nicola were beside me and were like, oh, give that a taste, like I'll taste it. Like same with food, I'll try it once, like but I just don't want to go back on. I've no want to go back to onto a full time, like and yeah, there definitely is like a lot of social pressure around it. Like for people, and it's more for people who don't know you. Like I don't feel that at all with you, Nicola, Simone, with any of my friends that like I are my actual friends. Like I've gone out loads of times with you guys, with loads of other friends, and I'm the only person sober, and that's fine. Like I don't feel any pressure from that. It's more people who I'm meeting for the first time, or people who like you just like you're meeting on the spot, like a friend of a friend who you end up, and then they'll ask you questions and stuff, like so there is definitely like a little social pressure in that way, but it's not from friends, it's more from strangers than anything else.
I think social aspects, you were kind of saying there, like you've had situations where you're talking to people and they're like kind of questioning you, like why you don't drink and stuff. I think a big thing in Ireland that I've noticed over the years is that because people are stopping to drink, or in your situation have been, trying sobriety over the years, it's kind of this thing in Ireland where it's become a social norm for people to not understand why people don't drink. It's like because I think Ireland is kind of known for such a huge drinking culture. It kind of stems down like I was starting like when we were talking about the topic from the years of substance abuse that has been taking place in Ireland over the years. And I feel like because it then became the social norm to progressively drink a lot. And I think when people don't drink anymore or are still in like friend groups where people aren't drinking, it takes people a while to wrap their head around it, because it's like the complete opposite to what everyone else is doing. And like, this is not just with drink, it's like a lot of things, it's like if everyone was watching Game of Thrones and you don't watch Game of Thrones, it's like, oh, you're that part of that 1% that doesn't watch it, because people are following the trend and what's happening, what's popular. And like, this happens with a lot of things, but more the thing that I kind of found with drink, and what I kind of like, just talking about my experience with it, I noticed over the years that I was a person that purely, and I was talking to Nicola about this last night on the phone, that I was a person that drank primarily just for the social aspect. Like, I love seeing my friends. I actually, I'm a person, I actually enjoy going to the pub, because it's just a way that you can sit down and have a conversation. Like you were saying before, you doesn't necessarily have to be that. And we kind of talked about before, like meeting myself and you, we would meet up for coffee, we'd go for a grub and stuff like that. But I'm also in the situation, like, I understand that, people also do enjoy having a drink and sitting at the pub and talking shit. And like, that's actually one of the things I do enjoy with my mates doing. A lot of them are big drinkers. A lot of them, just kind of drink for the social aspect as well, like myself. We'd sit around and have 3 or 4 drinks or whatever. But I can understand how progressively that can get worse over time. It starts off as like a social gathering and you're sort of sitting down chatting away, but then you somehow end up in a nightclub at 4 a.m. in the morning, and you're pissed drunk, and you're acting an idiot, and you're spending loads of money that you don't have, and you're putting yourself in debt, and it leads to longer problems down the road. And I think if you become aware of that, like, as I'm still trying to get better as I'm getting older, because I was saying like last week on the podcast that I am trying to stop and slow down completely. Just more, it's more for health reasons, like on a personal level. But I can see why, this is still a clear issue with a lot of people growing up in Ireland. But one thing I would say is there has been a huge reduction in alcohol drinking in Ireland, and I think that may be due to like the popularity of like fitness and facilities, and things are a lot better now than they were for our parents' generations. Like, we have a lot more opportunities for fitness and getting out there, like you're saying there, like how popular the gym is now over recent years with social media. Like, how many gym people how many guys do we know that we went to school with to have gym, our online pages, gym pages, running pages. Running has never been more popular than I've noticed anyway. So I do think we are heading in the right direction with terms of like awareness of drinking and alcohol problems, but I do think it's like a major epidemic that will probably always be present in Ireland. And I think not in Ireland and all over the world, but we're just talking from our experience of what we've noticed over the years. I don't know if you what do you kind of think on the premise of like, do you think that Ireland's heading in the right direction with fitness and the idea of coffee and meeting with friends in that sense, or do you still think it's the same and it will take a long time for that to change?
I do think it's getting better, but I don't think it's like getting better fast. And
No.
I do think a big there's something I feel really strongly about is I think they need to start taking the same approach to alcohol and gambling the way they do with cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I don't mean like like I know smoking obviously is a lot worse for you than drinking alcohol, but what I mean is in terms of how it's advertised. Like, I really don't like how gambling ads are advertised. I really just don't think gambling is something that should be thrown in the face of like people who are really struggling with it. And I think alcohol is in the same bracket of like, if you're appealing to that demographic, and I'm using a very stereotypical thing, but let's say a white guy in his 40s who enjoys football and gambles and is watching the football in the pub at the weekend with Paddy Powers next door. Like, this is so stereotypical, but it's just for an example, right? There's nobody in particular I'm kind of like looking at with this. If you're throwing those Heineken ads, those Budweiser ads, those Coors ads, and the Paddy Power ads, and the Ladbrokes, and all these, like, betting companies, you're only pushing that agenda to them. And I know there's the, drink responsibility tags and the when the fun stops, stop at the end of the ads and stuff, like, but they're only there because they have to be there. I really think they need to do it like a watershed situation where like it can't be done until like a certain hour of the day, like after 10 p.m. Like, I do really think they need to clamp down on the advertising of these products, because like it affects then like kids watching football. Like, you know, they're like, oh, when you're an adult you drink, that's what you do. When you're an adult you gamble, that's what you do. It puts that idea
Mm.
in their heads as well, like, you know. So that, like, that for one. And then like I also feel like the Irish government really need to like step up as well in terms of like giving people things to do that aren't drinking.
Mm.
Because me and Simone have talked about it before loads, and I think we've mentioned it once or twice in the podcast as well. Like, there's not actually an awful lot to do in Ireland. Like, realistically, like, you can go to, like, no, like, if you take drinking and going to the pub out of the equation, it's Saturday night. What do you want to do? You know, because me and Simone often like, and we love this, right? But we get why this life isn't for everyone. We love sitting on the couch, having a takeaway, and watching a show with the fire on, and that being that, that's nice and cozy for the winter. But like, we do often find ourselves in the summer, and like when before we moved in together, like when we were like, you know, living on opposite sides of Dublin, and like we had to meet in town and do stuff in the middle. Like, there was nothing for us to do past 6 o'clock that wasn't going for a drink, going for food, going to, and like, you know, going for food is lovely, but like that's something that's kind of like, you can't eat food from 6 o'clock till midnight. Like, you know, you have your meal for 90 minutes, and maybe your dessert. Like, you know, you can drag that out for another hour or two, like, by going to a different spot. Like, you know, but you know, they're all the only real thing to do on a Friday, Saturday night in Ireland is to go to the pub. Like, and look, of course, there's exceptions to that rule. There's going to be like a handful of 24-hour places, like, you know, around, scattered around the country, or, you know, of course, you've got concerts and that sort of stuff. But there's not a lot of like active activities you can do as a group, mainly. Like, you know, like I'm thinking of like the likes of like the Leisureplex and stuff
Yeah.
like this, like, and like bowling alleys and like places like that. Like, there's just like not an awful lot of those type of places where people who don't want to drink alcohol can go. So it like almost reinforces that idea of like, well, what, there's nowhere else open, let's just go to the pub, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
then it's a constant cycle in that way, like, until you break yourself out of it. But like, and like, I get that, like, it's like, well, what else do you do? Like I said, me and Simone like to do that on a Saturday night and just sit and watch the couch. I understand that might not be the most appealing thing for everyone. You know, we enjoy it, but some other people want something else.
I think in moderation, it's like you're kind of just going back to what you're talking about with the advertisement of gambling and alcohol. I think what's kind of noticeable as well is that like the highest rates tend to be from people that are living in impoverished areas, and like the closest thing in most of these areas that are areas is you got your shop, you've got your church, you've got your post office, and most of the time you have a garage or a pub, and 9 times out of 10 there's more than three pubs in that area. And like Shaun kind of was saying there, there's like a lack of facilities for people that don't drink and they have something to do in the evening time. Like, yeah, okay, it is great to sit at home on the couch and watch TV. And as much as me and Nicola love doing that as well, there is weekends where we do want to stay out late and go out. And if you don't want to drink, there isn't facilities in Ireland, for example, that are 24 hours. And, you know, not necessarily that it has to be a leisureplex, but this idea of like kind of stepping away from the idea of alcohol and an alcohol setting, because we talked about a lot before in previous podcasts about environments and how big of a major impact that creates. If you're in a group of 12 people, 11 people are drinking, and you're around alcohol and you're in the pub and the football's on, or people are talking and people are offering you a drink, you know, there's only, like Shaun said, there's only so many cokes you can have. These environments can play a major part on like how you think and how you want to, you know, go about the rest of your night. I think if there was more facilities like cinemas, leisure plexes, and basically anything to do that doesn't involve the idea of alcohol, gambling, and drug substance abuse, I think this would be a better beneficial for area of work for more people to, you know, thrive in. Because I think the biggest thing I think I've been reading a lot recently is about people are talking about like, because there has been a slight reduce, not majorly, but slight reduce of people going out. The kind of devil's advocate of what me and Shaun are talking about is you'll have less people making connections and meeting people. But that's where I feel like to co-interact that issue, the best thing you can do is then create stuff like fundraisers or facilities or meeting events that doesn't involve the alcohol, you know, idea. Which again, it's Ireland, it's going to be hard to do that. And I think that it primarily is on communities and a lot of government funding to put this forward. But again, with, you know, local issues that we have now with housing and, you know, the economic issues that we have in Ireland, I think this will probably be down later on the scale. But you know, again, this is me and Sean talking about the issue of alcohol and what we've kind of experienced with it. So yeah,
Yeah, and this, like I
yeah,
said, like it's I think the government really need to take an onus on it, like because at the end of the day, like and I also get like from a tourism perspective that like that culture brings in a lot like big drinkers from other countries come to Ireland, and like people who are really into smoking weed go to Amsterdam. Like it brings a big kind of cult, like tourism industry into Ireland, like, and I fully like understand and get that. I think like it's just something that maybe needs to be looked into in this, because in the city centre, how like there's hundreds of pubs in Dublin. Like there's a pub on every single corner in Dublin, like and they're never not rammed, like so there's more than enough pubs, but they just, like I said, like they need to like consider opening more facilities for people, like because like at the end, like me and Simone would love to be going out and doing like more in town on a Saturday night, but like the
the
reason we
opportunity
don't.
is not there as much. Yeah,
Yeah, and like it's also like the fact that you're gonna bump into people who are like shit faced, like they're gonna be wrecking the head to be around, like and it's like it's gonna be kind of aggravating and intimidating to be around that setting. Whereas like if you can make like like you have like business quarters and you've like like I'm just thinking like Grand Canal Dock, there's lots of like businesses, 9 to 5 office spaces, share hubs, that sort of places. There's loads of those type of places up there. I'm thinking like there might need to be like a space similar to that made for kind of like sober activities, like where like it's like it's like a little mini village within the city center of activities that don't revolve around alcohol. Doesn't mean you can't serve alcohol, these things, like a good example of a place, this is a place I'm not particularly fond of, but like it's a good example, is Token, right?
I was about to actually bring that up as well. Yeah,
Like Token do, like for anybody that's not familiar with Token, it's a restaurant in Dublin that you can play arcade games at, and you can get a drink, you can have food, and you can play arcade games. It's great for like big groups of people. It's not particularly my thing, but like that's a really solid kind of thing to have like in that type of quarter, like where like there's alcohol there for people who want alcohol, but it's not like the core idea of it isn't to go there get shit faced. It's to go hang around with a group of people, play games, have food, have a good time. If you could put like that next to somewhere like like I'm just thinking Smithfield here, right? Because there's a cinema in Smithfield. If you popped a bowling alley down there, I think Token used to be based around there. If you popped like another 5 things around there that like are activities that you can have alcohol at, but they don't revolve around alcohol, you'll create like a nice little hub of people who aren't out to get shit faced. They're just out to have a good time, a good vibe. They can drink if they want. They don't have to drink. It's not centered around that. And I just think that I think that like that sort of space where, like if the government tried to focus on making those type of spaces like a priority in Dublin, and like I just think it'd be great. And like I know it's not going to bring in money for tourism. I know people who want to go and get drinking, but like I said, like you'll keep those shit faced crowds away from
yeah.
there.
I think kind of what we're looking at is more like residence areas, like where people of that actually do live within the country are kind of more focused on. Obviously, we're kind of talking about our experience from Dublin, but I do think I agree with Sean that I think facilities do play a major part, and I think the government could do a lot more with community involvement and facilitation for areas with like soberness. Oh shit, my camera just nearly fell off. My microphone nearly just fell off the table there. And areas like that. So yeah. I think that's a good time to move on because my microphone just fell over on the table.
Yeah, just to kind of finish off, like, because
Yeah,
like, people
sorry.
might want to like know a bit more. I would really just to kind of like with you, like you said you were considering,
Yeah.
giving up, like how like what's been your kind of like process and mindset behind that, and like
Well, I mean, Sean kind of knows I'm more than personal, but I've been dealing with some like health issues over the years, and now I don't drink as much as I used to when I was back in Ireland, and it's funny enough because I actually work in a pub now, so it's a lot of not pressures, but it's very easy to stay back and have a point with the lads during the week, and you said you say for one, and then you have three, and then then the next day another lad says, "Oh, do you want to stay back for a drink after work?" So it's you end up having 3 to 4 drinks a week, and then then when you go out, you're getting smashed, or you're waking up, and I have to say a hangover at 24, 26 is unbearable. So I can only imagine what a hangover is like when you're 30, 40, 50. And for me, again, like I kind of spoke about before, I've never been a person who sat at home and like drank. I've always been a social drinker. And I felt like this year I was like, this is a really good time for me to, I know, I have a lot of kind of goals and aspirations this year for myself, and health is kind of the main one. I really want to look after myself this year, on a personal levels, and I think that it's not necessarily the alcohol substance abuse that I want to get rid of. It's more about I don't necessarily need the alcohol in my life to have a good time. So again, I told Nicola, and I've kind of spoken a bit about it last week. It's not really on me now where I'm going to say I'm completely gone sober. I'm going full blown sobriety because I don't feel like that's a healthy way for me, a way to go about it. But I'm definitely taking the load off in terms of, I'm not going to put myself in positions where I can be drinking around alcohol. So that, like, instead of going to the pub, like Nate was talking about, I'm a bit more luckier where we kind of live close to like a bowling alley and stuff like that. So instead of doing the things that I probably would have done back in Ireland, which is go to the pub with the lads, watch the football, I'll try to do more things around like my health and cooking at home with Nicola and spending more time with friends and family and stuff like that. So yeah, that's for rarely me. It was more due to health reasons, and I think we'll see over time how that progresses during the year. And yeah, that's kind of where my head is around the whole idea of alcohol at the moment.
Yeah, we'll wrap up on this one because
Yeah,
I know you want to move on as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
but because it's something that I mentioned that already a little bit that people ask me a lot. It's like why why'd you give up? Oh, why did you have a problem? Oh, why, right? And I'm gonna pose the question to the listener: if you're considering it, or like if you're you know questioning your relationship with alcohol, like this is kind of like what really helped me. It's like, why do you drink? Like and like I don't mean that in a cheeky way. I don't mean that in a like why do you not drink? Well, why do you drink? Like I don't mean that in like a passive aggressive way or anything like that. But like genuinely, seriously, like what I know you may have like and like how I started and how you started as well is like no, it's just kind of like what you started doing when you were a teenager. But why do you continue to like is it an escape for some? Is it a social thing like with Imran? Is like do you use it as a substance? Do you use it to deal with trauma? Do you use it to like as a tool for something? Like just really like find that question out for yourself. And like there's not I'm not judging it. Like I said, I don't like condone anyone for drinking. I don't care. It's your body. You do what you want. Like but you know ask yourself that question. If you don't like the answer, all I'll say is I've done it. It was hands down the best decision I ever made in my life. And like I said, like I have no temptations to ever really go back to it. If you really like it and you want to go and you want to keep going, fair play. Like I said, you do you. But ask yourself the question why. And yeah, if anybody wants to talk about it a little bit more, wants to DM me or have a bit more of an in-depth conversation about it, my DMs are open. You can just pop into my DMs on Instagram or message the page. Or if you have anything to add on this, drop us a message on the page and we'll read them out next week.
Yeah. I'll let you bring in the the pop culture slash current affairs section.
Yeah, cool. So over in Ireland at the moment, I've just been noticing for current affairs, there's been a lot being said about the M50 in particular. The M50 has been like a car park in the last couple of weeks. It's basically at maximum capacity. When they built it, I don't know when exactly, I think it was about 25, 30 years ago, whenever it was like, put together. It was made for a certain amount of cars, and like the NTA are now saying that like it's at max cap, like they cannot facilitate more cars, and it's more on like the daily kind of like Monday to Friday commute, like it's at max capacity. And I experienced it firsthand last week. I had to fly over to Blanche really quickly on Friday evening. I ended up coming back, and I jumped on the M50, and it takes me, if there's relatively light traffic, it takes me 20 minutes to get home from like the Blanchetown shopping centre to my front door. And that's if I use the M50. So, and I'm only going one exit. I let you come on at Blanche, come off at Palmerstown. So it's a really, really short drive. I'm only on the M50 for max, like, ever, like, 5 minutes if I'm not doing 100, 120, whatever the speed limit on it is. And I was on the M50 for like 35, 40 minutes the other day, and it is literally, it's like, it's not an exaggeration, it's like a car park. I was in first gear, just pressing, putting the brakes on, sitting for another 30 seconds, and just like kind of moving through it like that. And yeah, it's just been something that's been coming up quite a lot recently. And yeah, I just thought we'd bring it up and like see just talk about it. Like, it is just such a shit show. Like,
Yeah, from our listeners, sorry that we kind of didn't state it. The M50 is a motorway in Dublin, kind of on the northern side, and it kind of then expresses out down to the south and kind of connects the country to our motorway. And kind of what Sean was saying there, what can happen is there's a lot of the time there's a massive build up on the M50, and like I was kind of saying to Sean, and I kind of spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, is about when like I do move home, I also got to think about when we do buy the house that we want to buy. You also got to take into consideration your driving time, because a lot of people that like live down the country, they work up in Dublin, and a lot of the time they're spending 2 to 3 hours commuting every day. And if you're having situations like this where you've got congestion on an M50 line, you're going to be waiting, 20-minute spots where you're just stop starting in the car. And like I talked to Shaun about it before, like sometimes like driving in them situations can be like the most mundane thing in the world, because everyone wants to get home as quick as possible after work, but you're spending 2 hours of your day just trying to get home. By the time you're home, showered and have food and all, it's nearly 8 o'clock. You're literally back in the car the next day to get to work. So that's where it really falls into that mundane aspect. What do you think that like they could do better to get rid of this issue?
I really think the answer is improving public transport. Because like there's lots of people who don't particularly like want to drive in, like, and I know for me, I've been lucky enough to primarily only really work in the city centre, so I've just been getting buses in. But the problem is that it's like it's just the problem with Ireland is everything's fucking broke. Like none of the systems that are in place work properly. Like they're not future proof. Like that's everything from like the real time stuff with the buses to the bus routes themselves to the overcrowdedness of it as well. Like this tram, like I know they've announced that there's going to be like a metro coming in from the city centre to the airport, but like it's really like
I believe that one is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not enough. Like the buses, the buses are just absolutely horrific, and it's just crazy to see. Like you go 2 hours away on a flight, and over the like I remember when I came over to you guys, like the public transport over there is great. It's brilliant. Like it's nothing like to be like, oh my god, this is one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But it's reliable, it's efficient, it's on time. I haven't heard you complaining much about public transport life over there. Whereas like it's not reliable over here. And like I had it where I was in a job and it was in Ashburn, and I wasn't driving at the time, so I was going from Blanche to Ashburn 5 days a week, and the bus just like Ashburn, for anybody that's not from Dublin or not from Blanche doesn't know, it's about a 25-30 minute drive away, and the bus would take about 50 minutes to get there. That's fair enough. Has to go through stops, has to go through a village and blah blah blah. Grand, but like it just wouldn't show up every kind of like 2 or 3 days. Like there would be at least 2 days a week where I'd be like over an hour late for work.
Yeah.
Like, and for people who don't live in Dublin, it's even worse. Like it's terrible in Dublin,
Bus airing.
but like bus airing is a piss take with how bad it is. Like so
God.
it's like it's not reliable. Like it's one of the biggest reasons like people want to get on the roads that are our age. Like because you can't rely on the buses. But the problem with that is then it's getting too overcrowded on the roads. Like the roads are just there's not enough space on the roads for the amount of cars that need to be there. It's literally the problem with the M50 at the moment. But you can't blame people for not wanting to get on the trains and the buses and stuff, because they're just not reliable enough. So like for me, they need to basically just wipe the system and start again. And like what is working, like I'd say there's maybe 4 bus routes in Dublin that work efficiently. The 39A being one of them, to be fair. But the thing with 39A is it comes every 10 minutes. There's more 39As in a day than there is hot meals in some soup kitchens. Like honestly, and like I say that like with a bit of lightheartedness, but there's so many 39As because it's such a busy bus route.
Yeah, 39A is like having like a reliable father that doesn't forget to bring the milk home.
Yeah. Like do 39s get cancelled? Yeah, they do, of course. Like and I get like buses break down, and like if the problem is like our bus here outside there's a bus route that comes outside our house, and it's a great bus. It gets me from my front door onto the quays in 10 minutes. Great bus route, but it comes once an hour. And if that once an hour bus doesn't show up, the next one's not coming for obviously another hour. So and like it's more thinking of like the people who are in their 60s and 70s who like have to get into town for an appointment, or they need to go in to, like, they go to the markets on Mary Street or whatever like that, and like those people are going to say, right, well, I can't rely on the bus, so I'm going to drive in, which is creating more traffic on the quays. Or like, and like it works vice versa, like for the opposite way, like of like, okay, I need to go to Tala from Ballyfermot. It's, not, it's not far on the bus, but like, if a bus is like consistently not showing up, you're gonna drive instead if you can.
Just kind of talking about my experience with like I don't know if I've spoken about it before on the podcast, but I went into Ireland a couple of years ago. So I've been to, I'd say, near enough to nearly 30 or 20, 25, 26 European countries now. And I have to say Ireland is the worst country that I've experienced for transport. Kind of talking from my own experience here living in Switzerland, there's a bus every 12 minutes. If it's ever late, it tells you on the app, you get a notification. If one breaks down, there's a new one every 5 minutes. There's not enough bus routes. There's not enough bus drivers on the road. Kind of talking about Shaun there's explaining this. The buses are always late. There's always too much congestion on the buses. And there's also issues like it's the first country that I've ever experienced that there's no bus route, like public bus route from the airport into the city centre or into primarily areas like Blanchardstown, we'll say like Coolock, areas that are residential for you to get to the airport. So you have to get a taxi. You have no choice, or you have to pre-book a bus to collect you to bring you to the airport. And I think like they've been talking about this metro line since I moved to Dublin at the age of 8 years of age. They've been talking about that, and it's still been no update. That should have been something that was funded initially and started the planning position 20 years ago, and it's only now that they're talking about making a business plan and putting an infrastructure for it to happen. And I think a major problem is then what happens is you're getting dart lines on Lewis lines in the city to create less congestion, but then that's taking up more track lines and giving more people jobs positions. Then there's less bus drivers, less bus routes, which primarily more people need because they live in areas like Blanchardstown, Coolock, Tala, Ballyfermot. So I think like I know we're really at the government this episode, but really, really Ireland, you need to take it into consideration. And I feel terrible for people that live in the countryside. I had a friend that lived in Duleek. Sorry, I'll finish off on this topic, and we'll move on. But I had a friend that lived in Duleek at the time, and he used to get the bus Air bus. I'm not even joking. He'd have to wait sometimes 2 hours for a bus because I kept saying on the app that it was late. And it's like, where are these buses? Like, are they going off the side of the planet and up in Jupiter? Like, where is it going? You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes I'd be sitting there waiting. Sorry, I'll let you go.
So, yeah, just like the weight of that 2 hours, like that sounds shit as well. But like when you're living that, and like for example, like this time of year, it's winter, it's freezing cold, you're getting snowed on. Like there's so many bus stops that don't even have shelters on them where you can't stay in from the rain. You end up getting saturated sitting there, and then you end up getting cold, and then you end up having to call in sick to work. And like it's just the system that they have in place right now just does not work. It needs to be totally scrapped. Like when I used to work in town, I used to have an office job where I was in town 5 days a week, and I'd be living in Blanche, and I'd be going back to Ongar and Blanche, right? And it would take me almost 2 hours to get from it was Bagot Street to Ongar would take me 2 hours because it's too packed. And like you can't even really give out to the bus drivers because like they're in the same boat, like they're stuck in the same traffic. Like the quays are just too over congested, full of cars and buses and stuff. And like like look, come here, we're not the people to like make these solutions. Like there's people paid an awful lot more who have degrees in this sort of stuff, like who need to be coming up with solutions for these things, like but
I would love for us to bring the Minister of Transport on and just literally school them with 100 questions to see what the problem is. Darrell O'Brien, TD, we're calling you.
There was one day that I had a pretty funny incident one day where I was going to do that job in Ashburn, right, and the two buses in a row hadn't shown up, so I was left there for 2.5 hours, and it was soaking wet that day. So I arrived to work, I think like close to 11 o'clock. Like I was due there at 9 o'clock. I was mad late for work. I was soaking wet. And then something similar on the way home happened where another bus didn't show up on the way back. So I was like over an hour later getting home than usual. So like I was fuming, and obviously like my boss wasn't impressed and blah blah blah. So I come in and I was sitting down and I was making dinner, and I just popped my plate down on the table, And I get a knock on the door, and I was like, "Who the fuck's knocking on the door?" Like, I'd had a bit of a shit day, and I was like,
Yeah,
who's knocking on the door?" Up the door, and it was an election year, and the Minister for Transport was at my door. It was
yeah.
Jack Chambers at the time for Fianna
At the
Fáil,
time,
and
yeah.
I gave him such an earful on the situation. Like, I really, really gave him an earful. Like, not in like a shouty way, just in a, this is the reality for me every single week. Like, a bus isn't showing up, and it's absolute hell. Like, and I know that's he's out there canvassing to get feedback. Like, but yeah, that was
He's
just
actually a nice lad as well.
it was
I've
a funny
actually,
coincidence that he knocked on my door that day.
I've actually met Jack Chambers on like three separate occasions. Two of the times being at the house and one being at my GAA club, and I've actually spoken to him. And he's actually a nice guy, but I do understand. Like, again, he is in a position. There's only so much he can do, but yeah, definitely something the government needs to look at. I know we're cautious for time, so we'll probably move on to your distance dilemma. So this is the part of the show, guys, where you send in your dilemmas. They can be about different situations. I put them into a list. I mix them up. I don't know who they're from. And what we do is each week, me and Shaun take two from the list and dissect and talk about it. So yeah, we'll kick on. There's two new ones that we've got, so I'll bring the first one in. As a podcast of two guys, if I'm taken to a man almost 3 weeks, and on the first week he already organises a date and drives down 3 hours to see me, I can only think of positive things. What do you as men think? I don't know if I read that. I'll read it one more time just because it's a bit wordy, and then we'll
Yeah.
kind of break it down from there. Yeah. So as a podcast of two guys, if I'm talking to a man almost 3 weeks, and on the first week he already organises a date and drives down 3 hours to see me, I can only think of positive things. What do you as men think? So I think she's trying to kind of, I'm presuming it's, I don't know if it's a girl or a guy, but I'm presuming maybe it's probably a female, but I'm saying she's probably asking us, what do we think of
Very
a
sexist of you,
guy?
man.
No, I'm trying to read through. See, he's trying to get me cancelled already. But I'm trying to read through the lines here, and I'm getting the feeling that maybe it's a female. And just the fact that she keeps saying as men, or if he's saying as men, but I'm sure he would just say my brothers or my homies. So yeah, so again, she says, or he said, I don't know. I'm butchering this, but from my reading of it, it just seems that the guy is really keen. I do think it is a bit early in the situation. They've only been talking 3 weeks, and then the first week he's already organising a date and to drive down 3 hours to see me. But then again, like, we don't know necessarily the connection that maybe these two people have. Maybe the guy, the one thing I would say about guys is when a lad really likes you, he's kind of Sean can probably kind of agree. When a guy really likes a girl, they kind of only got like eyes for them, and they kind of lock in that way, so that sometimes they can come on too strong. Um, but it's kind of, what I would do is I would take this in a positive light. I think that maybe, he maybe really likes you and he wants to meet up with you and, like, see where this goes. Again, it's only 3 weeks into the talking stage, so I do think it is more of a positive sense than a negative sense. So yeah, it would be, as a man, I think the guy likes you, and I think he's very keen to see you. But again, I could be wrong. What do you kind of grasp of that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of context here that we don't know.
Yeah, of course, of
So
course.
I don't I kind of agree with you. I'm gonna play devil's advocate,
Devil's advocate, as you always do.
just to kind of give a different
Yeah,
perspective on it. Just like I said, I don't really disagree with anything you've said.
yeah,
Um, I'm gonna fill in some blanks here, and I very much could be wrong,
yeah,
but I'm gonna assume you guys don't know each other. Maybe you matched if he's driving for 3 hours. Maybe you guys matched on Tinder or Bumble or
yeah.
Grindr. Inclusive for all my homies. And yeah, I'm going off the basis that you guys don't know each other. You've been chatting for 3 weeks, and he's organised a date, and he's willing to drive 3 hours. If I was in that position, I think, like, to not know somebody, and like 3 hours is a bit of a drive. Like, it's a bit of a trek. It's a commitment, and I am also, if someone's driving 3 hours to organise a date, if that's in the evening time, it's very unlikely that they're going to drive back that night. Especially if you guys are going to go for dinner, have some drinks, that sort of stuff. Like, so. I would still be cautious. I don't think it's reason to be like, oh, this is Prince Charming. And like I said, I don't disagree with. I think it's like, maybe it's just the guy being very forward, which, like, depending on the context, like, can be a good or bad thing. You like the most important thing here is you're saying the person who put this in is saying I can only think of positive things, which is probably saying there's not been any red flags to date.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say err on the side of caution. I'll prepare for the hope for the best, prepare for the worst. It's something that I
Yeah.
kind of live by. Like so just err on the side of caution. Overall, is he a bad man for doing this? No,
No.
a little bit eager, a little bit keen, as Imran said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, that's not a bad thing. Just err on the side of caution is all I would say on that one.
Yeah. I don't think there's much else we can say on it, but best
Yeah,
of luck. If you're
it's,
in that
it's hard.
situation,
Best
yeah.
of luck. Yeah.
Best of luck. Yeah, I'll move on to the second one now. So I work abroad and I like to work really hard in work. However, I'm not getting the hours that I want. I've asked for more, but it's always pushed off by the manager. But then I see others in work that take the piss that are on better contracts than me. It really pisses me off and makes me feel like my work is underappreciated. I'd love to go first on this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I've been a person who, of course, now I'm living abroad, and I was a person that kind of experienced this in my current job, not to the same extent in terms of people that weren't, working as hard or people that were taking the piss and stuff like that. And for me, what I found my biggest thing was I felt that it was somewhat of a bit of a disrespect in my role. But the thing I kind of understood then, and I have to be careful now because I am speaking on my workplace, what I noticed is if a workplace doesn't have high standards set from the get go, I mean that it's like Sean has worked in areas where you kind of work these kind of quote unquote college jobs, like money to get by places. It's very hard to find an area where you can progress in, and I felt that there was situations in my current job where I felt that my hard work and hard etiquette was being kind of neglected. And the best thing that I did in this situation was I asked, could I have a sit down conversation with the manager? And then it ended up just being like more conversational. It didn't actually end up being the conversation I wanted to have, which was initially meant to be more of like a serious conversation. But eventually, what actually ended up happening was he kind of took on what I was trying to say, and he kind of explained to me reasons why I wasn't getting the hours that I wanted at the time. And now, I've kind of said prior, I've somehow been able to work my way up and actually get a contract that I'm happy with, and we're all both sides of the party is happy with it. But one thing I would say in this situation is don't try and neglect too much the work that you're doing and get affected by other people, because you can only ever control what you do in a room. And it's the same with anything in a workplace, in a team. You can only work on what you put in and how much energy you put into something. It's like to say that me and Shaun do this podcast, and if his energy wasn't matching mine and the amount of work ethic that we put into it, it would be a red flag for both of us to have a conversation, because both of us wouldn't be happy with what is being presented in front of us. So the one thing I would say is try not to dwell too much on the other people you're working with, and just try focus more on the work ethic, and don't change the way you are, because like the person said here, they like to work hard, they work hard. And yeah, that's kind of my advice on the topic, and I don't know what Sean would like to speak on it.
Yeah, I had a situation before where I worked in a job and I felt like I left no stone unturned. I felt I was one of the hardest workers, and like I've said, me and you have said a couple of times, and this isn't me trying to like stroke my own ego or rant like that, but I can't half-ass things. Like I'm 100% or I'm 0%. Like, and I don't really,
Yeah.
I don't do a lot in between. But I was in a similar situation, not in terms of like contracts and like fighting for hours and stuff, but I was in a job, and I was in this job for a couple of years, and I felt like I said, I left no stone unturned. I thought I was a really good worker. I thought I was one of the better of the employees and stuff. And there was other colleagues that didn't do half as much as me, and they like sat there and like they'd like just like I'd say, oh, can you give me a hand doing this, and they'd literally just say no. Why? Don't want to.
Yeah.
And I'm not their boss, so I can't really tell them to. Like I'd just be asking them for a hand with something. They'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay. grand, fair enough. Or like little things like, when like, we were really, really busy, they would like, be doing things that were, like, kicking the ball in the corner, or like, they'd go off and they'd start watching the match on their phone, like in a storage area of some sort, where like, they could go for 5 minutes and pretend that they were looking for something, like, stuff like that. Um, and when one thing that really taught me was when I left that job, I had worked so hard, and I left and I didn't even get a card or like a proper goodbye, and like I'd been there for years, and those people stayed in that job for a little bit longer, and I kind of was like, I feel like an idiot for going the extra mile, when at the end of the day we were getting paid the exact same. We were both
Hmm.
getting paid the same hourly rate, like, so I think like the biggest piece of advice I could give here is like, know your worth. Work hard, absolutely work hard, like, but if there's some red flags there like that, like I think you did the right thing in your situation, Imran, where like you spoke to your manager and you were like, look, I kind of feel like I'm being like undermined or hard done by, when you break your ass, like, especially in a situation like this where like, there's like hours and like, finance involved, other people are being
Mm,
financially rewarded by getting more hours.
exactly.
Totally understand that, but what it did teach me is to like, know your worth. So like, I won't ever put myself in that situation again in a job unless it's worth it. So I went to my next job. I took a bit more of a hands-off approach, because again, I was just getting paid a flat rate per hour. Did my work, and like I think the biggest thing for me was to like not let that affect anybody else. I was like, right, okay, I'm doing my best for the team. I'm helping the team, but I'm not like, breaking through every barrier, and I'm not going above and beyond in every single scenario, because at the end of the day, I'm not actually going to get rewarded for it. And then the job I had after that was a job where I would earn commission, and because there was a financial incentive there for me, I always went the extra mile. I always went the extra way, and what it taught me was to just like, manage your level, like your work levels, like, and like, put 100% in when it's going to benefit you, and be a bit selfish in that way. Like, it might sound a bit assholey, and I totally get it can come across like that, but just like speaking from experience, it's like just the best thing for your kind of like mental energy. I think it's something that like everyone will experience at some point in their 20s. Like, you'll go into a job and you'll give 100%, and it's like, you know it can be your 20s or your teens or whatever. Like, this happened to me, like, between the ages of 18 to 21, whatever, like,
Yeah, I do think underappreciation in workplaces is a major thing, and it's definitely, I think, something you notice maybe more at a younger age. But I do think it can be still present as you get a bit older in some places. We kind of talked about this before about the kind of the difference of like retail work and the idea of like then when you go a bit more, go into the business area or you go into like
corporate,
you
yeah.
know corporate world, it can be a bit different because the job, it's, I don't want to come across as an asshole, but like it can become a bit more professional likewise in a workplace rather than areas where in retail it can be a bit neglected in that professional sense. But one thing I would say is that with underappreciation, and one thing I've learned is to know, like what kind of what Shaun said there, is kind of like know your own worth in the workplace. And again, for me, like the best thing I did was, and it's very, for me actually personally, I in other jobs I probably wouldn't have spoke up and went to my manager in this situation. But like kind of Shaun said there, finance is a big thing while I'm here, and understanding my appreciation in the workplace is important. So I do think it's not as easy as just getting some motivation to go and go talk to a boss, especially if you're at a younger age. We don't know how old this person is, and that kind of sense. But one thing I would say is kind of just understand your situation of where you're working, and taking the bigger factors at place, finances. Do you want to progress in this role? And all the kind of things that goes along with that. And yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, for
happy
sure.
with
And
that.
like in both retail and corporate environments, I say especially in corporate, but it does apply to retail as well, as there's so much politics being played.
Of course.
And like from reading that, one of the first things that came up is like there's definitely politics, and like there's people who are moochers and don't work or half the time, but like they just happen to be really good friends with the boss or the owner
Yeah, yeah,
or something like that. And then likewise, there's some absolute grafters who go above and beyond, but in their first 2 months something happened where they had to take unexpected time off, and a manager has had a bit of a grudge against them ever since, because they were left short staffed on a shift and some
yeah.
shit happened. Like, there's so much politics in work environments. you know, so that's like just like another factor that comes into these things as well. Like, you know, so just thought it was be worth mentioning that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been quite a long episode, and I think it's probably time for us to wrap up now at this point. If you guys would like to send in any of your dilemmas in future, you can reach us at the distancedilemma@gmail.com, or you can send them to us at our Instagram. You can send it into our DMs if you want to send a voice note. If you want to make a fake email, send us an email. Like I said, it's all anonymous. We won't read your name out. We won't give out any information publicly. So yeah, send us your dilemmas if you would like us to chat about them. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for listening to this episode of The Distance Dilemma. My name is Shaun, and I am in Dublin, Ireland. This has been Imran. He is in Thun, Switzerland. This has been episode number 48 of our Long Distance Friendship podcast. We will see you again next week at 6 a.m. Irish time, 7 a.m. Central European time zone for another episode. Until then, thank you very much, and goodbye.